All right, so again, welcome. We are here for the Youth Program Quality Initiative Kickoff meeting. Some of this might start to sound familiar to some of you who have been through this process before. Some of you are new to this process and might be brand new. So feel free to come off mute, ask questions. We'll also probably have time for some Q&A at the end. But excited to have you all participate this year. We're looking to have probably about 50 to 60 programs participating this year. So really excited to be able to bring some familiar folks and some new folks to this professional learning community that we're building through this process. All right, welcome, Meg. We're just getting started. So quick overview. We're going to do a quick warm welcome round robin in just a minute. And then, like I mentioned, we're going to just kind of walk through what the process and schedule calendar looks like for the year and then have time to Q&A. The session is really meant to just ground us all, make sure we're all on the same page, answer any questions. So before we do our warm welcome, I just wanted to give you an overview of our network team. We are the Alaska After School Network. We are a statewide program that supports out-of-school time programs through supporting quality initiatives. We're a convener through conferences and through professional learning communities such as this and providing trainings. And we also serve as an advocate for out-of-school time. So this is our team you see on the screen. Thomas is our executive director. I think many of you have met him before. Lily is our AmeriCorps program specialist. She oversees our statewide AmeriCorps program where we place AmeriCorps members at after-school programs to serve as STEM coaches. So if that is something that sounds interesting to you, to potentially host an AmeriCorps member, or if you know anyone who's 17 or older and might be interested in serving as an AmeriCorps member, Lily's email is there. Anna McGovern is our conference coordinator and PD coordinator, so she organizes a lot of our professional development and trainings. There's me. I oversee some of our statewide initiatives, such as the Youth Program Quality Initiative and Lights On After School. And then a couple new faces you might see are Marie Hall. She just came on in the last month or two as an AmeriCorps STEM Vista member, and so she's supporting all things STEM that we're working on. And then finally, Severa Lee came on in April as our school-age childcare program specialist. So she is supporting licensed school-age childcare. She's got her hands in regulations and things like that. So that is our team currently. And since we are a professional learning community as we go through this Youth Program Quality Initiative together, I want you all to kind of get to know each other and who's in the room. So if you could all put in the chat box just your name, your program, and one thing you are excited about as the school year is very quickly approaching, I think this week even for some places. I've got Meg from Juneau, Alaska Music Matters. Jennifer from 21st Century in Fairbanks. Kristen from 21st Century in Dillingham. Tyler from Youth 360 in the Valley. Esther at Kinnick Tribe. Excited to get your 14-year-old out the door. Yeah. Hillary at Boys and Girls Club. Kaya, Copper River. Drew from Kinnick Tribe. Fourth year with Cirque, second year at Dillingham. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. And there are also several other programs participating. I mentioned when we first started, we're going to have probably 50 to 60 program sites participating this year across about a dozen organizations. So you'll get to meet and interact with some other organizations, and your staff will get to interact with other organizations at points throughout this as well. And like I mentioned, some of this is going to be very familiar for those of you who have been through this before, and this might be brand new for some of you. So feel free to come off mute or drop in the chat box if you have questions. So to start, our whole process, the Youth Program Quality Initiative, YPQI for short. There's so many acronyms. I'll try to say all the acronyms for you to be accessible. But we go through a 3-step process throughout the school year: assess, plan, and improve. So in fall, programs get trained and brought up to speed on how to do an assessment, and then they do an assessment on program. And then in winter, we enter a planning phase where we have a planning with data workshop, and programs set goals for their team. And then spring, January, February, March-ish is when you're implementing those goals that were set. And then ideally at the end of spring, you're going back and doing an additional assessment to kind of measure growth and change throughout the school year. And then this graphic on the right here, this is known as the pyramid of program quality. You will become very familiar with it throughout this process. It is based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs and is a visualization of best practices for out of school time. It is also a visualization of the tools that we use to measure program quality. So you can see on the bottom of the pyramid are things that entail a safe environment. So, safety, and then it moves up to supportive environment, and then really high level peer interaction and engagement towards the top of the pyramid. So those are the things that we are measuring through this process. You also see at the bottom of the screen, it says data, got it. Sometimes we play this game. We can play it today if you would like. I kind of have whiplash from playing this game over the years, but anytime you hear me say the word data, put in the chat box, you can type the word got it. You can also come off mute and say got it, but I might get annoyed. I like have secondhand like data whiplash. Sometimes I'll be like doing a presentation on this to our board and I'll say the word data and pause, expecting people to go, got it. So feel free to participate every time I say the word data. You can say the word got it if you so choose. So the 2 tools that we use in the Youth Program Quality Initiative are the School Age Program Quality Assessment, also known as the SAPQA, and there's also the Youth Program Quality Assessment, YPQA. The School Age tool is for grades K through 6, and Youth is for grades 5 through 12. There is also a 3rd tool called the SEL tool, Social Emotional Learning Program Quality Assessment. We haven't dove a ton into it yet, but we are kind of open to exploring, starting to sprinkle it in. So if you've been through this process a few times and you're interested in exploring a couple of the scales, let me know and we can look at kind of choosing which scales you might want to start measuring. And then we have the trainings that go with that tool as well that we could provide for your program. So let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. And so these program quality assessment tools, these are measuring what's happening between staff and youth in programs. So interactions that are happening between staff and youth. Are staff greeting youth in program? Are they providing opportunities for reflection? Things like that. These tools can be done either as a self-assessment or an external assessment. Self-assessment is where someone on your team, sometimes it's the director or manager, sometimes it's the site coordinator, or sometimes, in best case scenario, if you have the staff capacity, our staff can conduct the assessment as well. There's also an external assessment that can be done. You can choose whichever one you want to do. External is where someone who's a certified, reliable assessor with these tools through the YPQI Center comes and observes a day of program and does an assessment and then debriefs with your program. So sometimes it looks like someone at the network like myself or my colleagues Anna or Thomas could come out and do an assessment for you. There's also the options like Jennifer in Fairbanks is also a certified external assessor. So if you have internal capacity to do an assessment, you are welcome to do an external assessment with that internal capacity. If you're interested in building internal capacity, I'm going to drop a link to an upcoming, it's going to let me, upcoming training so all of these tools are from the YPQI Center for Youth Program Quality, and they provide trainings to become external assessors. Let me just see if this is going to let me copy this. Not sure why this is letting me paste. I will get these links to you in an email after this. Go ahead and put in the chat box for your fall assessment. If you know whether you're doing a self-assessment or external assessment, go ahead and let me know. And if you're not sure, say, I don't know, and I can let you know if it's something we haven't discussed yet or and we can get that figured out. Well, it looks like most of you have a pretty good idea. All right. So in this whole process, there's this thing called Scores Reporter. This is our data management system. And it is where once you have all of your scores for your assessment, you enter them into Scores Reporter. It's just a website where you enter all of the scores, and then it spits out a really pretty data report that we get to use later. And so we've been processing, so the only cost involved with YPQI is paying for Scores Reporter. It's $75 per site. And so we've been working on getting out those invoices. So if you haven't gotten those yet, either you haven't gotten your MOA back to us, or our accounting team does invoices every 2-ish weeks. So you can expect an invoice for that. But that's really the only required cost associated with all of this. So for Scores Reporter, if you're having an external assessment, your external assessor will worry about getting your scores in Scores Reporter. If you are doing a self-assessment, you'll want to designate who on your team is in charge of entering those scores. And I'm happy to support with getting scores entered too. And you'll have a whole account that'll be set up. All the login information for that will be sent out in September. Any questions on tools or Scores Reporter or anything like that we've discussed so far?
So just a quick question. I put external just because it's our first time going through it. Do you have a recommendation or experience from the past with other organizations doing external or internal, and any recommendations?
You know, there's a few schools of thought. Some programs will do like a self and fall, external and spring. They'll do one of each. Some programs want to do just self. Some want only external. Really, the gold star practice is self-assessment, because then it's your own program looking at your own practices. And you're going to hear this 1,000 times throughout this process. This is not about the scores. It's about the conversations that you're having. So when you're doing the self-assessment, sometimes those conversations are a little deeper and there's a little more thought that goes into it. And there's also the fact that an external assessment does tend to be a little more objective. So, there's kind of both, I think, are valuable options.
So you mentioned there's some sites that do both. What would you recommend that we do both this fall? Because I'm open to that.
I guess I would recommend just doing one assessment total per season. So you could do like external in fall, self in spring, or self in fall, external in spring. And then that's also a good way to build your team's kind of knowledge and capacity around the tool, is to kind of get an outside perspective and be able to use the tool themselves to get the practice with the items.
So I'm leaning towards external to start with, and then a self in the spring.
Okay. Yeah, that seems
Makes sense.
like a good way to learn the tool. Great.
Thank you.
Great question, by the way. All right. My schedule slides, I feel like, are always a lot to look at. So I'm going to walk you through it. These are the 3 trainings that we offer in September. People on your team should only plan to attend one of these 3 trainings. There is the Youth Program Quality Assessment Basics Training, which is a 6-hour course that trains you in the youth tool. There's the School Age Program Quality Assessment Basics Training, which is a 6-hour training that trains you in the school age tool. And then there is the Basics Essentials course, which is a 1-hour overview of both of these tools. So if your team is new to the process, I would recommend that you attend one of the 6-hour courses. If you're a returner and just want a refresher on how the tool works and how to do the assessment, come to the 1-hour training. I will say the youth training and the school age training are almost identical. So if your team can't make it to the one that aligns with which tool you're using, feel free to attend either one. They're almost the same. Or if you're bringing on staff after the fact of the first 2 trainings, feel free to attend the basics as well. Anyone who kind of needs just the background information on how to do the assessment.
I hate to keep doing all the talking, but
No, please.
I am out of town the first 2 weeks of September. So I'll have Drew and Esther attend those, and I'll be back for the 18th, and I can do that one. So I'll just try to get caught up from them, but they'll be our team for that training, those trainings.
Perfect. Yeah. And then if you end up doing the external assessment in fall, like you mentioned, then you can kind of shadow me as I do it. And then that'll really set you up good for spring, I think.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Kristen, I saw your hand up.
You said they were 6-hour training. It looks like, is that the youth plus the school age?
Great question. So both of these first two, so it's on the 5th and the 6th. So it's 9 to noon on the 5th and then 9 to noon on the 6th. And I'll also share, I am busting at the seams to send you this registration information so you can just get it on your calendar and have it ready to go. We are waiting for the Weichert Center. These are the only two trainings that we can't offer ourselves. They don't offer the training of trainers for these two. We are waiting for the Weichert Center to confirm the youth date. It's 99% going to be this day. We're just waiting for them to confirm before I send out the registration information. So I have like a whole spreadsheet of registrations for you that I will send out ASAP. I'm type A and like to appease my other type A people.
Question, Aaron.
Yeah.
Would the network's training records be able to tell me which of my staff have done the full training in the past?
Yeah, we sure can. We've got
Okay,
all of that on
I'll get in
record.
touch with you on that.
Yeah, let me make a note quick. And if anyone else needs that kind of information too, feel free to email me and I can pull a report really easily from our system. Okay, so October is your ideal time to conduct your assessment. So September, get trained, October, do your assessment, and then scores are due in Scores Reporter by the end of October so that I have time to get them all ready for planning with data. If you need a little bit of wiggle room, I know like between lights on after school and parent teacher conferences and stuff, sometimes assessments can start to edge a little bit into November. Just let me know if you need a little bit of wiggle room. I just need some time to be able to get things organized before planning with data. So I'm going to sidestep from the program quality assessment tools for a second. This is a separate tool that is completely optional. It is called the Organizational Quality Assessment, or the OQA, formerly known as Form B, which some of you have done before. And so the PQA tools, Program Quality Assessment tools that I just discussed, those were measuring what's happening on the ground between staff and youth. This Organizational Quality Assessment tool is measuring what's happening at the organization between management and staff. So it's what is the organization doing to support what's happening in the other tool. And this is one that we recommend doing, I don't know, every 2 or 3 years, or if you have big turnover in leadership or staff in your program. And so this isn't an observation. This is an interview. You sign up for an interview time with someone at the network, and we just walk through the tool together and kind of look at what practices are in place to support staff in a bunch of different areas. And the data that's used from this tool can also be used at planning with data in addition to the PQA tools. Oh yeah, some of you are playing that Got It game. Oh, and so this OQA that's usually done just with like the manager or coordinator, not necessarily like site coordinators. This is really kind of the administrators and HR level. And then Scores Reporter for the OQA, Organizational Quality Assessment, we'll take care of that. Since we're doing the interview with you, we'll take notes and take note of what the scores are throughout, and we'll get it all put in Scores Reporter and get those reports ready for you. So that all happens in October. We do a 1-hour training overview of kind of what the tool is and how it works and what it's looking at. And then you sign up for an interview time if that's something that you're interested in. And for those of you who did the Form B or OQA more than 2 years ago. So if you did it the very first year we did YPQI, they've completely revamped the tool and they've added a lot of really great things. So consider doing it again if you haven't done it in a while. Okay, so that was all the assessment phase. So assess, plan, improve. We're entering the plan phase. So in the plan phase, you take your data that you got from either your program quality assessment or your organizational quality assessment, and you come to a planning with data workshop, which we'll talk about more in a second. And you kind of look at the 3 different levels of data, and we go through a whole root cause analysis and get you to setting goals. So this is an example of what some data might look like. So you can see your site level data in this turquoise color. And then if you have more than one site, we can put it next to your organizational level data. And then we have our cumulative state data, and then also a national sample. So you can kind of compare and see where you're at in some different areas. So this is the really high level, and you'll see that these categories align with that pyramid of program quality that I mentioned. And you can see them labeled down here. So just for this example's sake, you can see that this program scored pretty high in supportive environment compared to the organization, but still a little bit lower than state. So for example's sake, we're just going to zoom into this one, supportive environment. And you can go to that next level and be like, okay, what in supportive environment are we scoring low in? Active engagement and staff support, youth, and skill building. So from there, you can zoom in even further because there's kind of 3 levels of this tool that you'll learn more about in basics to the item level. These are the tangible hands-on things that staff can do with youth that they're being scored on. So within active engagement, you can see they scored pretty low in tangible products or performances. And staff encouraging youth to try skills. So maybe this program wasn't doing something very tangible the day that they were observed. So that might be a goal area, or they might go through the root cause analysis of why is this happening and what goals can we set to support it to happen in the future. So that's kind of an example of what the data looks like that you'll see at planning with data. And in your program debrief, or in your assessment debrief, you'll also see that same data, the graphs and things. So this planning with data workshop, there are several different options. We will offer the full 6-hour workshop in person at our conference in Fairbanks on November 20th. If you're a new program and you're coming to conference, we'd love to have you. Registration for pre-conference should be dropping any day now. I'll get all of that registration stuff sent out to you, like I mentioned. If you're a returning program and your team has gone through the full 6-hour planning with data before, you don't have to go through the whole 6-hour thing again. You can come, we're going to offer a 2-hour version of it in person at conference. The time and date is to be determined, but it really kind of goes straight into the root cause analysis and goal setting and leaves out some of the initial like overview and kind of how to read the data that is more useful for someone who hasn't been through the whole process before. So those are our conference options. We also have 2 online options in December. So we are doing the full 6-hour version over 2 days on December 5th and 6th from 9 to noon. And then we're going to do the essentials, or that 2-hour version again on the 2nd for returning programs that don't want to go through the full 6-hour thing again. I will say the only other cost associated with YPQI, if you do choose to go to planning with data at conference, you will have to pay either the pre-conference fee if you're just doing pre-conference, or if you want to attend the essentials, you'll need to pay the fee to attend the conference. But the online versions are free. If none of these dates work for you, we've also done kind of one-on-one planning with data. I know Hillary Boys and Girls Club, you've got a lot of people, maybe your favorites people will come to the conference one, and we might work on setting up a couple different planning with data options because you've got a lot of folks. So there are other options too for getting you through this crucial part of the cycle. So ideally, programs are walking away from the planning with data workshop with their goals already entered into Scores Reporter. Some programs like to go back to their sites and kind of flesh out their goals a little more. We really encourage you to bring some staff and not just management to planning with data, because goals, we really want the staff to be bought into these goals. We don't want to just be management coming back saying, you scored low in this, so we are going to do this. So we really encourage you to include staff. If you're not able to bring staff to planning with data, then that might be a case where you bring some of this back to program and turn in your goals at a later date so that the staff do get a chance to have a say in that process. So as goals are due in scores reporter before you leave for winter break. Any questions on the plan phase? All right. So then comes springtime, January, February, March. That's kind of our 90-day improvement period, where we do a professional learning community. We do some training, some coaching supports. And so what you're seeing on the screen here, these are the 10 youth work methods trainings that align with the program quality assessment tools. So say you set a goal in the supportive environment domain, you can choose which of these trainings will help meet your goal, and then you would send staff to that training. So some programs will attend all of the trainings because they want to. Some programs will just attend one or two that align with their goals. And some programs I know have been through all 10 of these, and we can, of course, look into, I don't know, whatever supports would be most helpful for implementing your goals. So we offer these online in spring. If you've got a group of people that you want to do just a group of your program, we can also set up one-on-one or kind of different times for us to put on these trainings for your program as well. And if you're close, we can do them in person, close to Anchorage, that is. So our improve calendar, first thing we do, we get back from winter break and we hold a professional learning community to kind of reground you in those goals that you set right before you left for winter break. And there's a chance to kind of get input from peers and really kind of invigorate that motivation behind your goals again. And then those youth work methods trainings that I mentioned are January through March. Right now they're planned for Wednesdays, 12 to 2 p.m. And so like I mentioned, those will be online starting, I think, the third week of January, and then they'll be done before spring break. And then that January through March period too, we also offer coaching supports. So I'll send out a coaching sign up where your team can sign up for a time to just check in with me and have, it's super informal, it's just to check in on your goals, see how it's going, kind of keep the momentum going and see what kind of supports might be needed. And then in spring, in March, I'm going to offer that 1-hour version of the program quality assessment basics essentials, just that 1-hour version of that of the original 6-hour training, just as kind of a refresher for anyone who maybe had an external assessment in fall and needs a refresher before they do a self-assessment in spring. And then ideally in April or towards the end of the school year, you are doing a spring assessment, again, either self or external, to measure growth or change and just kind of see where things are at. And those scores are due in Scores Reporter before the end of the school year, whenever that is in your community, because then I kind of spend the beginning of summer accumulating that data and putting it together. But we always end our cycle with a celebration and reflection meeting. It's usually done before everyone's done with their assessment, so we don't always get to see the full data from the spring, but that's a great chance to get to look at some of the data from the fall and some of the initial spring data, just to kind of see the state's growth in different areas. And that's also your chance to reflect and celebrate, and a chance to give us feedback on how we can continue to improve this whole process. Any questions before I go to our last part here? What kind of accountability can we expect to hold us to these dates? Which dates are you, the like Scores Reporter dates, Hillary? You will receive emails from me. Does that answer that question? Great. Yes, I will send lots of reminders. And if at any point you need support with, like, if you've done the assessment, you're working on scoring, and you're stuck on something, you can always call us up and I can always help walk through things. And, or if you need help, if you have scores and scores reporter is stressing you out, you can send me your scores and I can get them entered in like 3 minutes. It's not we try to make this as painless as possible. I know the whole assessment thing can be stressful to people and we try to keep it very warm touch. This is your data, your program's data, your staff's data to improve their own program. This is all, we try to make it as easy as possible. Okay, so just some kind of tips for different people's roles in all of this. So leadership, we kind of have it up to you to get your staff to trainings, maybe providing some coaching supports. We can also do some of that coaching support. And of course, we offer trainings, but just getting staff engaged and including them in the either data, if you have the ability to have them involved in the assessment process and data collection process, but really, if you can get them involved in the planning with data process, that is always great to have on the ground staff in that. And then, of course, having them in the goal implementation phase. And then for site staff, again, if we can have them participate at whatever level they're able to attend the trainings, those youth work methods, if you're able to get your staff to those, since they're the ones doing the work with the youth, love having them there to gain those skills and get to think about how to apply those skills to programming. And then, of course, because they're the ones enacting their goals and best practices with youth. So we just talked through an entire school year. That can be a lot, can be overwhelming. So I like to put up this short list of the 10 things we're doing this year. And I feel like that might help a little bit of, you know, there's just a couple things per month, 1 or 2 things per month. So this is kind of the snapshot of the whole thing. And so I'm going to leave it there and leave some time for Q&A. And or reflections. How are we feeling after all that? And I'm going to ask, since when you score on the program quality assessment, items score either a 1, 3, or a 5. So either on camera or in the chat box. Give me a 1 is I'm overwhelmed. This is going to take some time to sink in. A 3 is I think I'm getting this. I think it's going to be okay. And 5 is like, we got this. Let's roll. And it's okay to be any of those. Kristen, there's no 3.75s, 1, 3, or 5. Great. 3s, 5s. Awesome. And if you are feeling a 1, feel free to reach out. This holding your hand through all of this is my job. So if there's any point where you need support or encouragement, reach out. We also try to be really understanding with on ramps and off ramps if there's certain things that you can or can't participate in. So please reach out, ask questions. We are here to support you. All right, I'm going to stop.